What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off on a macro standpoint, there isn't really that much in data coming out this week that's going to impact the broader market. There's a couple of Fed speakers though near the second half of the week, but depending on what they state, that could move the market slightly. But in reality, it's going to come down to two things. Trump's tariffs, whether that be countries retaliating against his tariffs that he did kind of put forth on the first, or him giving updates, whether that be extensions, kind of lowering. So that's going to be something that moves the market. Aside from all that though, it is going to be companies unveiling their earnings, and a lot of big companies are unveiling their earnings, especially in the tech sector. So in among itself, that should really move SoundHound. And then yours truly is unveiling their earnings after hours on Thursday. So currently, the implied move is 11.27%, so roughly $1.14 in either direction. That's based on the options. On a side note, this is actually the highest price level that SoundHound has been at going into an earnings. So previous one was at $9.74, $9.21. So I know SoundHound's gone down quite a lot. Even in fact, just over the last 5 days, it's down 13.88%. But this is going to be the highest it goes into a earnings with. So kind of interesting stuff. Of course, from now until Thursday, a lot could change. So it could go a little bit lower, because on a technical standpoint, things are looking a little bit iffy, so I'll go over that in a second. But historically, it seems to be very much reliant on future guidance. So even though SoundHound's current estimates for the earnings per share is -5 cents, revenue is $32.88 million, you still have a very large dependence on future guidance. That's what Wall Street really does care about. So that might be a positive thing, possibly. But nonetheless, though, earnings per share, there has been 0 positive and 5 negative revisions over the last 90 days. So analysts are becoming a little bit more bearish. That could be a positive, though, only because if SoundHound actually does hit a home run, it's kind of lowering the bar for them. For SoundHound to easily beat, in theory. So something to keep in mind. A little bit further of a breakdown though. So of this -10 cents, and this is the earnings per share estimates, that does represent a 13.64% year-over-year growth, low end of 11, high end of 9 cents. Moving over to the revenue, $32.88 million, that does represent 144.27% year-over-year growth, on which 3102 is the low, 3362 is the high, which is kind of tight-knit if you actually think about it. So of the 8 analysts, nobody's really anticipating any craziness from SoundHound. So even though you can kind of look forward over the next couple quarters, you see good solid double-digit growth, it's not anything crazy, because I feel like SoundHound in reality has been rather tame, and even the revenue source has been rather tame because no one revenue customer is giving more than 10% of everything. So it's very well diversified, so that's good for safety, but not good for a momentum growth stock. So I feel like SoundHound does need to shake things up a little bit and become a little bit more aggressive. But then again, I've kind of complained about that in the past. One thing that analysts are really going to be focusing on though is their stacks, just to see again if it's still very well diversified, the backlog, and also macro concerns. So last earnings, that seems to be kind of the hot topics that analysts cared about. Most likely that's going to follow and roll over into this upcoming quarter as well. So just kind of watch for a lot of these analyst questions. But this is pretty much it alongside profitability. So of course, I think they did mention estimates, of course, that they're going to be profitable by the end of 2025. So just to see if the company does double down on that mentality. Backlog, pipeline, those are going to be some hot topics as well. And just product development. That's going to be something that I feel Wall Street is going to start to really care about with SoundHound, because in the past couple of years, SoundHound's done a lot of acquisitions to kind of fuel their product development. And for those of you that remember, SoundHound did a S3, so a shelf offering about like a quarter and a half ago, and that's up to 500 million. So they have more than enough access to cash to do more acquisitions. So that's going to be something as well that I feel Wall Street is going to really care about, is what are they doing to grow. Even though SoundHound is in a growing market, still people and Wall Street want more innovation and stuff like that. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Going into this upcoming week though, there isn't anything planned yet, so no fireside chats, but typically post earnings, there's always at least 1 or 2 interviews, whether that be on Bloomberg or something else. But going into this upcoming week, very high short interest. In fact, I believe it is the all-time high short interest. So 34.39% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 124.2 million shares overall being shorted. Even on Friday, shorts did increase 635,000 shares. Through IBKR, it does indicate roughly around 3.4 million shares overall are being shorted. So yeah, shorts are definitely playing a pretty deep game as well. So anticipate them to be fairly active this upcoming week. With it closing on Friday at 10.11, that does mean that the 10.50 and above strike prices are expiring worthless. So looking at the open interest, you pretty much have 1,000 at that 10. That's not going to cause any bump up come Monday. And even looking forward into this upcoming week, interestingly enough, there's no strong walls around where SoundHound is at. So come Friday, you won't see any manipulation from shorts trying to suppress it below a certain strike price or anything like that. From the bull standpoint though, going into this upcoming week, you see a consensus for it to be kind of around that 12 to 13.50. So a little bit more volatile than what was estimated. And then the bears are anticipating for it to kind of be sub roughly between that $9 and $10 range. So of course, where it did close on Friday, somewhat level ground, a little bit more upside in reality. So something to keep in mind. With it though, at 10.11, that's where it closed on Friday. It is trading between this pivot and this S1. I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So 986 is going to be a strong support, followed by 899. In my opinion, I don't think this 899, this S2 will be hit, possibly dependent on their earnings. And if it's kind of lackluster, then you might see this S1 possibly being touched. But flip side, 1126 and 1266 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. So if they hit a home run earnings, and like I said, a lot of the key metrics have been really lowered by analysts, so the expectations are fairly low for that. So SoundHound could really beat on that, and if they give good future guidance, then you could easily see a very nice push higher. And most likely, post earnings, you will see at least about 3 or 4 new analyst ratings. So it looks like these right here, these 5 or 6, whatever it is, those are the ones that typically give ratings after earnings. So anticipate that same level. And so again, you can kind of analyze what they did give this round versus the next round, just to see if there's any bullishness or if they've turned bearish. I think one big one as well to watch for is Daniel Ives. So he's been very bullish on a lot of innovative stocks such as SoundHound, but what is he going to give for a rating this time around? Keep note though, Daniel Ives did add SoundHound to his innovative ETF, and there's only, I think it was like 21 or 30, something like that, stocks selected. So SoundHound is at least on big money's radar, just SoundHound really does need to execute. On a technical standpoint, things aren't looking all that great going into this upcoming week. So ultimately it did close below the 50 and also 200-day moving averages. So 1088 is that 200, 1065 is that 50-day moving average. Also, it did break below that super trend, meaning that going forward, you're going to have algorithmic trading really suppressing SoundHound. So SoundHound really needs to get their crap together. If not, it is going to really pull significantly lower. But luckily enough, it was tested and it kind of held up. That 992 is going to be that 100-day moving average. So that's kind of the line in the sand. So definitely watch for that. If not, you most likely will see another full-on breakdown similar to what happened right over here in like February. So not the best type of scenario going into their upcoming earnings, but I think that SoundHound does have all the tools in front of it to hit solid earnings. So in my opinion, I do feel that the broader market is going to take SoundHound down in the first half of the week, but in the second half, it will recover alongside with also SoundHound's earnings. So by the end of the week, I do feel that it will be closing between this R1 and the pivot. Realistically, that's where I feel it will go. Where I want it to go is above this R3, so in the $15 range, but in all fairness, I don't see that happening this time around at least. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. where do you see things going for this upcoming week? And aside from what I've mentioned, is there any other things, hot topics, that you feel SoundHound needs to touch on in their upcoming earnings in order for it to be seen as a success? So that's going to be something as well to pay attention to on what they kind of overlook, because now technically a lot of companies know what Wall Street doesn't like, so they tend to just not really touch on them. So what is SoundHound going to try to ignore? So let me know your general thoughts on SoundHound. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for a lot of buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.